Good morning. Welcome to my thought for the day. I've been thinking about kingdom principles, and the best place that you can find the principles of the kingdom to which we belong is in Matthew, in the Sermon on the Mount. It starts at Matthew chapter 5 and finishes at the end of chapter 7. If you get a chance to read them, if you haven't read the Sermon on the Mount for a long time, it's a good thing to do every now and again, to read the very words of Jesus as he set out the principles by which we should live as people of God. And at the end of it, he illustrates what it's like to have a life that is built on the foundation of his words. And that's what we want, a firm foundation. You know, in our world, it just seems that, particularly, feels like it in Chard, that you only have to turn around to find another plot of ground being cleared for more houses to be built. We seem to have houses springing up all over the place, and there's a lot of contention about it because we haven't got the infrastructure, we haven't got the roads, we're getting congested. We could moan and groan, we won't moan and groan. But when you build a house, you need good foundations. The building regulations for a conservatory are very strict and very tight, and if you build an extra room on, you need good foundations. We need good foundations for our house. And Jesus, in this lovely illustration of the two men who built houses, one on a rock and one on the sand, illustrates the importance of, and he sees our lives as being houses, buildings, a house built on good or other foundations. And it's a very well-known story. You probably sang it in a chorus if you went to Sunday school. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house upon a rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house upon the sand. Wise and foolish. We need to be careful what we build our lives on. Don't build your life on current culture. Don't build your life on new ideas. The ancient ways of Jesus have stood for 2,000 years. The ways of God have been revealed to us in the scriptures. And the striking thing about this is Jesus says this at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. He says it to all those who have listened to his words. And the difference between the solid foundation and the weak foundation is not that one hears the word and the other does not hear the word. That's not the difference. The difference is that one lives out the word, does them, lives out the principles, puts them into practice, makes them part of his life, and the other one doesn't. It's not that they don't know, they both know, but one introduces these ideas into his life and lives his life based on these foundational ideas of how he should behave towards his neighbour, how he should pray, how he should walk, how he should fast, how he should behave, how he should think, because in the Sermon on the Mount it says, you've heard it said, you shall not murder. I say, you don't hate your neighbour. So about the thinking, we have to change our stinking thinking for good thinking and loving thinking. We have to love, even loving our neighbour as not judging, not taking revenge, not judging forgiving, giving, not swearing, not promising things we can't keep, being like salt and light in the world. All these things he taught in the Sermon on the Mount. And then he said, everyone who hears these words of mine and does them is like a man who built his house on a rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them is like a man who built his house on the sand. Now, Jesus doesn't comment on whether they are the house is good or not. They both built a house. And they both experienced storms and rain. Now, Jesus never, in any of his teaching, promised us a smooth ride in this life. He didn't promise us an easy passageway through this life. His blessings, his provision, his presence go with us wherever we go. But the storms will come. And just like in our experience of life, you can have beautiful weather in the morning, and then the clouds gather, and by the evening there is a storm, a thunderstorm. And we very often do in this country have very, very hot days which end with a thunderstorm. The storm comes very suddenly, out of the blue, and it hits both houses. The person who doesn't apply scriptural principles to his life has the same experiences of life, but when they come to him, his life crumbles. He falls apart. He can't cope. He has no foundation. This is a great warning. If you find that when the storms of life come against you, you fall apart and panic, then your foundation isn't right. Think about your foundation. If you find every time the least thing happens to you, you fall apart and you panic and you wail and you ring everybody on the prayer line and ask every single person to pray for you, then you have no trust in God. You haven't got a good foundation. What are you building on? Check your foundation today. That's a good thought for the day. Check your foundation. What are you building your life on? Whose words are you listening to? That's my thought for the day. God bless you. Have a great day. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.